Hey, it's Paris. You know, I love sparkly things, right? Like stars. Duh. And thanks to Hilton and AutoCamp, I just slept under them. Picture me, serving looks by the fire outside my luxurious Airstream, making s'mores with the kids, while a national park is our backdrop. The great outdoors meets Hilton hospitality. That's hot. Explore all the new ways to stay at Hilton.com. Hilton for the stay.
As a sports fan, I have to confess. Sometimes the game gets kind of boring. That's when I unfold my Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7 and use multi-window viewing on its large screen. Boring game? I'm checking out my fantasy baseball league at the same time. Score still 1-0? I'm replying to emails in the other window, scoring points with the boss. Semifinals finally getting exciting? I'm buying tickets to the finals and booking my flights. Can your phone do that?
The new Galaxy Z Fold 7. Get yours at Samsung.com.
Hello and welcome to the I Can Do podcast with Benjamin Lee. We're here to talk about tips and strategies to have an I Can Do mindset. Life is what you put into it. Get the most you can. Here's your host, Benjamin Lee.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of the I Can Do podcast. I'm Benjamin Lee here with another fantastic guest today. Brent Peeples is on the show, and just want to do a quick intro to Brent, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Brent, with any of the information I'm going to share. Brent is a comic book artist whose work has spanned through Marvel, DC, Image Comics, and more, and you've seen his art in Spider-Man, The Lost Hunt, Ghost Rider, Action Comics, and more as well. Brent, welcome to the show.
Hey, how are you doing, Benjamin? Thanks for having me on.
I am doing fantastic. Thank you for being on the show as well. We met, I think, just a couple of weeks ago at the NTX Comics. And as you can see in my background, I'm a big Iron Man fan and I'm a big Marvel fan. And you were drawing at your table and I asked you about potentially being on the show. And you were gracious enough to say, yeah, shoot me a DM on Instagram and we'll make it happen. So I really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule and being here with me today.
Yeah, man, you bet.
All right, well, let's talk a little bit because I'm curious, and you're my first guest who is a comic book artist. When you meet someone who is not into comics, how do you explain what you do?
I think it's fairly easy just because everybody kind of knows what a comic book is. I think the biggest misconception that people have is when I say I draw comics, they think I just maybe do the covers, or they think I do all of it on the inside, the coloring and the lettering, and they don't understand the different moving pieces. There's a writer and an artist and a letterer and a colorist and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So I tell them I draw those.
Very nice.
Books.
Yeah. How many moving pieces are there to make one comic?
Well, you have your writer and the penciler and or inker. So I ink my own work. So I do my pencils and my inks. But when I first started, I was just penciling the book, and then it went off to the guy that would ink it. And then there's the colorer, and then there's the person that does the word balloons and the letters, and there's the person that does the trade dressing and which is like the title on the front and the credits page on the inside. There's a person that puts the book together that makes sure that the pages are in the right order for the ads that the book's put in there as well. And there's a lot of pieces. You have your editors that go through and edit everything.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Wow. Yeah, that's fascinating to hear. And I don't think sometimes people fully understand that, just how much it is to get one comic book out. So I appreciate you sharing that. How did you first break into comics?
Back in 2007, I started wanting to get into it. So I was kind of a late bloomer. I was 27 before I tried to break into comics.
Okay.
And I had seen a thing on TV that was Marvel's Guide to the New York City. And it was one of those moments of, I need to give this a shot before I'm too old to try it.
Yeah.
So I just started doing samples. I literally walked into a comic book shop. I hadn't been into a comic shop in years. I walked in and said, I want to get into comics. Do y'all know anything about it? And they kind of looked at me sideways, and they said, I don't know, so I just kind of Googled it, and they said, we have people coming in to sign if you want to talk to them. And so
Wow.
I got online and just started doing samples and started hitting store signings or conventions and showing my work over and over and over again until something hit for about 2 years later. So 2009 was my first small published book.
Yeah. So I'm curious because what you just said resonated with me. I don't know if you know, but I preach full time, and it took me about 8 years to make that decision.
Yeah.
Should I do that or should I not? I was 30 years old. I told myself, well, if I wait until I'm 40, some things may change. And what was that moment for you then? You're 27. Sounds like you were already drawing and things like that with art.
Yeah.
What was that moment at that time that said, okay, it's almost going to be too late? Was it something that you just saw, or just something you just been thinking about, or someone else kind of gave you that push? What was it?
There was no push. It really was sitting there. I mean, I was working. I'd always drawn as a kid, and then about high school, I quit drawing and I got into being a high school boy and music and things like that, and got out of high school and got into the workforce and did a short stint at college before I decided college wasn't for me. And so got into the workforce and I had a good job, but comics was something I'd always wanted to do. So
Gotcha.
I think the push was seeing that Marvel's Guide to New York City, because it had John Romita Jr. and Sr. It had interviews with, all these names that I knew and that I liked, and some behind the scenes of them drawing the books. And it was really one of those things where, man, let me give this thing a shot. So I was getting up at 4:00 in the morning and drawing sample pages and going to work and drawing samples on my lunch break, and then I would come home and, be family man and whatever. And then the kids would go to bed and I would draw a little bit more. It was a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I love waking up at 4 a.m. and just pursuing that dream at all costs. That's amazing. Am I correct? Your first credited work was New Superman with DC. Is that correct?
No. So my first credited work was Grim Fairy Tales back in 2009.
Ah, okay.
So
my apologies.
My first big two book, my first major publisher book, so DC or Marvel, I would say the big two, was New Superman.
Gotcha. DC. Okay. Walk us through that first time when you had that first credited work. What was that experience like for you?
It was a blast. It was, it was a much smaller publisher. It wasn't the genre I wanted to do necessarily, but it was work. So, Zenescope is known for being a little bit more salacious and not adult, but just definitely PG-13 books.
Gotcha.
And, more of a spin on kind of I would say kind of like a B horror movie spin on the fairy tales,
Gotcha.
Stuff like that. So, but anyway, the first book, I got the job and did that book, and that was a pretty cool experience just because I went around the entire day buying a copy from every shop, going to every shop and buy a copy. But that day I ran into James O'Barr, who's the creator of The Crow, and we had become friends from me going through conventions for a couple of years showing my work. So I had met him and I started setting up at shows, trying to get my name out there. And so we had made friends. And on that day, he was at the shop, one of the shops that I walked into. Yeah. And so we were talking about, showing that this was my first book, and finally got published. And he was telling me his first experience when he got his first book published. And then I went, made my rounds, and I got home. And at that time, this is what made it so special, because at that time, James would go to the library to do his emails or anything like that. He didn't have internet at his house. And by the time I got home, he had sent me an email as a congratulations and keep it up. So that was very special that he would take the time out to even think to do something like that.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's great. This podcast is called the I Can Do podcast. I have a heart condition. So back in 2010, I got what's called a implantable cardioverter defibrillator. So the initials or acronym is ICD. And so this is where this idea of the I Can Do podcast comes from, with the idea of mindset and things like that. And just listening to you, waking up at 4 a.m., putting in the work over the lunch hour, finding these opportunities, going to conventions for 2 years, showing your artwork. One of the things I'm curious about, how many no's did you get? You're doing this for a few years, and what was that like with this idea of just being persistent? That's what I'm hearing, that got you through these doors eventually.
There was a lot of no's. I mean, I remember going out to San Diego Comic-Con to show my portfolio out there for the first time, and just getting annihilated during a portfolio review. And I went out there with such big hopes, and to just first day just get trapped, not in a negative way. I mean, not in a bad way, but just publishers or editors saying, you're just not ready. You're just not ready. You need to work on this and work on that. And I walked by a buddy's table who's worked for Marvel for years, and he was one of the first people to give me a portfolio review, give me some thoughts, and he just kind of looked at me and was like, "It's a hard business. You either you want to do it or you don't. And if you want to do it, you have to keep pushing and take this stuff and run with it and get better, or you give up." It's like, it really kind of was. It's the, if you can't hang with the big dogs, get off the porch kind of a situation, And so there were a lot of no's, but it was one of those things where I was still getting work. There were smaller publishers, and there were times where I would get frustrated that I'm not getting bigger work and bigger work. But I just kind of kept pursuing and not taking no for a necessary answer.
Yeah.
And I had made the connections with friends and people in the industry. So I had people to lean on and to say, hey, can you take a look at this, or can you take a look at that? I made connections. And those are also helped kind of get me in the door. My first job came because people that I had made connections with that were friends of mine, we were at a convention, and an editor from DC was there, and they were like, hey, you really need to go talk to this guy.
Gotcha.
And introduced me. So the industry is just as much talent and skill as it is not necessarily who you know, but being a person. It's how you are.
Right.
Nobody wants to work with somebody they don't like. Nobody wants to work with somebody that's a pain in the butt. And so when you can meet these people and they can tell that you're at least a decent human being, that helps, along with the skill and everything else.
Yeah. Thank you for
But
sharing that.
There are a lot of no's, and plenty of rejection letters, and plenty of times talking to editors over the years and going, am I ready yet? Or, anything else I can do, and hoping for that call, until it finally hit. I mean, I was 7 years, roughly 7 years working with smaller publishers.
Wow.
Before I got the first big.
Wow. 7 years. Do you still have all of those drawings that you would take to those conventions? Did you keep all of those?
No. I mean, selling originals has always been an extra way for us to make money as artists.
Gotcha.
So I used to hang on to a page from everything I did.
Yeah.
But I quit doing that. So I've got some of the old stuff in a box somewhere.
Nice.
But I don't really have an emotional attachment. If, I do this to pay the bills. So with me selling an original, like I've sold the samples, people that wanted to buy the samples of the stuff, different things that I'd done. And they like them. It means something to them because they like them, because I think it's kind of a piece of history in a way. I've got this piece from Peeples before he did this, or, or they follow my career so they can get a piece later and go, man, I have the one from when you first started now. And it's just kind of like a full circle moment, in a way.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I love that. No, I appreciate you sharing that. There's an author I like, Cal Newport. He wrote the book years ago, Deep Work, and he has a podcast. And he was just telling the story about some guy had wrote into him about getting published as a writer, as an author. and he used the story of Stephen King and how Stephen King had this big nail in his wall, and he kept all of the rejection letters, and he would just push them through that nail, and eventually he just kept on writing, and it turned into something. But it took years. So sometimes I don't think people can appreciate that in different businesses or careers and things like that. People can just look at a comic book. Yeah, it's a comic book, but it's so much more. Hearing all of that effort and input. So I appreciate you breaking down that. Looking back, what would be one piece of advice you wish you had when you were just getting started at 27, if any?
Man, I don't know. I got a lot of really good advice. I don't know if there's anything that I think looking back, if I would have maybe tried to, if anything, I just would have tried to start sooner instead of waiting so long. But I think if I would have started sooner, I wouldn't have been as driven to do it. You know, it's all of that, right? So, you know, I think that as far as advice, though, I got so much good advice from everybody that I spoke with and got connected to. I really did make a good group of people. You know, surround myself for the most part with a group of people. So, advice on work or breaking in or being in the industry, everybody was always really helpful, even in ways that seemed harsh at the time. You know, I've got a buddy of mine, Cully Hamner, who's worked for Marvel in DC for years. But when I first met Cully, it was when I was showing my art to him for the first time. You know, we joke about it now because we're buds, but this was, 2008 when I first met him, and I showed him my portfolio, and he looked at it and just goes, "You just need to learn to draw better." You know, and he wasn't being rude. It was, you just got to get better. If that's a phone, it needs to look like a phone. If this is this, it needs to look like this. If you don't know what it looks like, get reference, you know. And so, like, I saw Cully, I don't know, a couple months ago, and we were joking about the same thing, you know. And he was like, it's true, and you still need to get better, you know. And so, but I had those hard talks, and then I had, you know, and I appreciated those more because it pushed me to get better. Yeah,
I love that. Let's talk about working across Marvel and DC. You worked for both of them. How does that creative process differ between them?
It really doesn't for me. Okay. It's different properties, but it's all the same work. You know, I tend to find love for any project I work on for the most part. I worked on a couple projects for other publishers that were like pulling teeth, but those are few and far between.
When you say find love, like you just get invested in that comic or that character, is that what you mean?
Yeah, like invested in the characters or the storyline. You know, there's so many books I look at, and it's like, I've gotten to work on so many cool projects. You know, everything from New Superman, which kind of felt like a baby to me, and Titans both felt like my babies for a while. Because those are probably the longest runs I was on. And I really grew to enjoy those characters. I got to know them, so, you know, their personalities and the way that they're being written by the writer, and each character is written with a different personality, and so in ways to kind of evoke that through the art. But like when I was on Flash, I was on Flash for just less than a handful of issues, but I thought, okay, cool, I get to draw the Flash, but I had more fun. These issues had his kids in it, and the kids were more fun to draw than the Flash, you know. Or when I was on Ghost Rider, I was super excited, but I was like, man, I'm dreading all these chains, and I'm dreading the motorcycle, and but once I got into it, he became one of my favorites to draw. So I kind of just find I can find love for every property in some form or fashion, you know. The only thing I did have to do a James Bond book, and that was like pulling teeth. It's just guy in suit, and it was just kind of boring.
It was just boring. Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
Yeah, it was just dull for me. But outside of that, I've been very lucky with the properties, and so back to your question, as far as the creative process between Marvel and DC, there's really not one for me.
Gotcha.
I'm familiar enough with all the characters that they have. It's just, I think the only difference is when you work at DC, you draw more capes than you do when you work at Marvel.
Gotcha. Yeah. So what's been your longest run? You mentioned you had a couple of long runs with different characters. What's been the longest?
I think probably my longest run was New Superman, because I got to take that one over about midway through and finish it up. Now that book was going to be coming to an end, so maybe that was a good way for them to go ahead and let me finish it out, because I was a new talent. See how, see how you perform on a monthly schedule or whatever, and maybe that's what that was. Titans was fairly long. But Ghost Rider was a decent amount of issues as well. They were just more split up. So
Gotcha.
I think Ghost Rider was probably about the same amount of titles as Titans. It just wasn't as consecutive.
Gotcha.
It was in and out helping Corey.
Okay. I'm curious, you get a new project. You just mentioned something about working on it each month. Can you walk me through, in the audience as well, from what does that look like? Is it a new comic that's released each month? And what's your time frame of having your work done? And how much is that? How much time are you putting in each day or each week for that particular project?
On a good deadline, all things are perfect, I've got roughly 6 weeks.
Gotcha.
To get from the time I get the script to get whatever kind of, I don't just dive into to pages. I do little thumbnail drawings and lay out the page and send that in for approval, make sure they don't want to change anything. And then because I'm inking my own work, I'll do the pencils and get those approved, and then I'll ink it and get it out the door. So in a perfect world, I have about 6 weeks for all of them. It doesn't always end that way. There's times where I've got 6 weeks and something happens where this happened when I was working on Miles, because it was a part of a bigger storyline overarching all of Marvel at the time. Consistency had to be throughout all of their books. So you couldn't put one person in a book when they're supposed to be somewhere else in another book. So it all had to jive. So it would be, sometimes it would be, or when I was on Titans, the same thing happened. The Titans was when Dick Grayson got shot in the head. So that also rolled through all the Batman titles and a couple other titles. So they had to piece all together. So there was times where it's like, okay, hang tight for about a week while we figure all of this out. And so now that cuts my deadline shorter, and I don't really get an extension. They're pretty good if you have an extenuating circumstance where, hey, I need a couple extra weeks, because there's deadline and then there's deadline.
Right.
But, all in all, best case scenario, 6 weeks. Worst case scenario, I've drawn a book in 3.
3 weeks?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And so if I'm doing a 6 week schedule, I try to keep my hours or I try to do a page a day. So if that means the page takes me 4 or 5 hours, great. If the page takes me 8 to 12, then that's what it takes me. But I try to do a page a day. On a 6 week schedule, 20 pages in a book. You can kind of break that down. So how many pages I need to get done a week. But I've done it where, and I haven't had to do it in years, but I've done it where I've had to draw a book in 3 weeks. So it's 2 pages a day. It's just get them done.
Wow. Yeah. So you're only working on then one project if you got to invest that much time, or are you doing multiple projects?
No, it's just if I'm on a book, I'm on a book.
If you're on a book, you're on a book.
There was one instance where I was drawing Titans, and they also needed help on Super Sons. Something happened with the main artist, so they needed help on 10 pages. So, and I had a convention that same month. So I was on Titans, and I was on deadline, on course for deadline for Titans. And I was at the airport waiting to get on a plane to go to a convention to set up. And they emailed me asking if I could take on 10 pages for Super Sons as well. So I told them to send it to me. I worked on layouts on the plane on my iPad. And I was only penciling both books at the time, which made it a little bit easier. But yeah, that month I think I did 30 pages in 30 days.
Wow.
It was a grind because I also had that convention in the middle, so that was knocked out 4 days.
Yeah.
So that was a push. And that was the only time I ran 2 projects at once. But
okay.
Yeah.
That's amazing. You have to forgive me if some of these questions sound silly. I'm genuinely curious, and I think this is fantastic. So you mentioned the thumbnails. That made me think about. I'm more of a MCU fan. Growing up, I didn't have a lot of comic books. I wish I did now, looking back, and I have read some and bought some and things like that. When you mentioned the thumbnails that you had to send back in, that kind of sounds like previs, like the previs work. Is that similar? Of like laying it out? Okay, we're all on the same page.
Yeah,
go ahead and now just expand this and do it and finish it up.
Yeah, so it's when you look at the page. I mean, you look at the page in the book. It's just really rough sketches of how I want the panels to lay out. Basic breakdowns of where the characters are and maybe their basic acting. Mm-hmm. No major detail. It's just enough information for me and the editor to know what's going on.
Gotcha.
In case they want to make any revisions there.
Okay.
Because I ink my own work, I want to give them the opportunity to make any revisions along the way that they can before I start inking. Because once I ink that page, I don't want to have to go back in and change anything with whiteout or draw an extra piece to Photoshop on top or, any patches or anything like that. So, if I can, and especially if I'm going to spend all the time penciling, I don't want to have to get in there and change if I don't have to. So, sending the layouts just to make sure everybody's on the same page before I really get in there and start penciling the page. Mm-hmm. But that also gives me the ability to get the first thought out of my head, get it sent to editorial, and by the time they've looked at it, I've also processed it. So at that point, what I initially put down on paper may change up to 30% because I think this panel can be done differently, or, this looks more dynamic here, or this can be drawn better. Those types of things as far as storytelling is concerned.
Are you thinking about then on the project all day? Like, if you got to put 4 or 5 hours or 8 hours in a day, you're kind of tinkering, you're thinking, okay, I could do this better. Or are you able to compartmentalize all of this of, all right, I put this time in. Now it's family, whatever. You got a guitar in the back, you got other projects you're working on. How do you compartmentalize this?
I think my brain, to an extent, is always kind of running in the background.
Okay.
So, I mean, when I'm done, I try to shut it off. But if I'm on a book and I'm constantly kind of thinking about the pages, mm-hmm. It may not be 100%. Once, if I'm sitting down with my family, with my wife or my kids, or mm-hmm. I'm trying to be present. But right. I think if there's any quiet time, or even if I'm trying to lay down and go to bed, I'm thinking in my head, how can I make this page better?
Yeah.
But I think I do that anyway. Just I'm always, as a creative, my brain's kind of always doing that. Now, mm-hmm. if I'm really tired and I'm ready to go to bed, I can just shut my brain off and just
go to bed. How do you handle this? I would think at times there could be a danger of perfectionism. On the other hand, you still have a deadline. Mm-hmm. Are you a perfectionist? How do you get to that point where you have to say, this is good enough, I'll do even better next time?
I don't know. There's been a couple times where I've drawn a page and turned it in and knew it was trash and redrawn the page and sent it to editorial and said, it was not good. I had to redraw it. That's happened 2 or 3 times. I've gotten all the way through a page, and chunked it behind me. My wife will tell stories to people. She'll walk in my office and just see art on the floor.
Really?
What is this? And, oh, it's trash. It's trash. It's great. No, it's trash. I think there gets to a point where, it's if I'm having to force it, then I need to just walk away, and then I come back, and usually I'm a little bit clearer, and so it's walk away and go sit and chill or go to the gym or do something.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can come back with fresh eyes and fresh brain and do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to be a perfectionist to an extent, but not at. I don't want to kill my deadline. So if I have the time to keep working something to get it right, then I will. But sometimes it just gets to a point and go, that's as good as it's going to get today. And I just have to move on, because it's always been important for me to be on time. And there have been some times in the past, very few, where I've had to get an extension on a deadline or miss it by a day or two. And it's not really, but the concern is not so much for me, but if I'm behind, then that puts the next people in line behind.
Gotcha.
So which then affects their paycheck and their families and everything else. So
I see. Yeah.
I always put deadline at the top,
Gotcha.
And even when the work has suffered because of the deadline, especially earlier, when I've had stricter deadlines and the work's had to suffer, or it's not as good, because I'm on a tight deadline, I still do that because everybody else is affected.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. That's a good way to look at it. Brent, I'm curious, working with Marvel and DC, you're sending this into the editor. Mm-hmm. They're sending you information. Is there like a lot of privacy behind like how this stuff gets to you and how you're sending this back? Or is it as simple as you're FedExing it? How does that work?
No. So all of my pages, for approvals, I scan them and then I just email them.
Okay.
Here's what it is.
Yeah.
And then if it's approved, then I upload it to their servers. So,
okay.
When I worked with an inker, it would either be, depending on deadline, it would either be scan it and email it to the inker, and then they would print out ink on top of it and do their thing. Or if we had enough time, I would just FedEx it directly to them, the pages, for them to ink on the actual pencils themselves. Which is very old school, and not many people do that, but I prefer it, and especially with inks over my work, I prefer it. But either way, so I say the only privacy is it's kind of like don't go out there telling people or showing, I can't show the stuff online, on socials, if I'm on a Spider-Man book, the best I can do is maybe show a panel that's got his face on it. I can't show anything important.
Mm-hmm.
I have to be very careful what's posted for any kind of socials.
Mm-hmm.
So there is that, if I talk with it to my wife or, buddies, they're not going to go tell the world. But
right.
I do have to keep it, like if I was on a podcast today, like with you talking about, a Spider-Man book I'm working on, I couldn't tell you what was going on. But
yeah, very cool. No, I understand. So who is your favorite Marvel character? Is it Spider-Man?
I don't really have any. Probably my favorite character ever is Superman, but that's who I grew up with. And that's the first character I ever learned to draw that was a superhero, back when I was little. So he's always that character's always got a special place in my heart. Like that'll always be my guy. But outside of that, I don't really have a favorite character, I don't think.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I go through seasons where I feel like drawing this one, or this one seems fun to draw today. But I don't really, outside of, I think Superman's my favorite character of all time, again, because he's just closer to my heart.
Yep.
But outside of that, I don't really have any favorites.
Toughest one, sounds like James Bond was boring. Ghost Rider, there's lots of chains. That sounds really tough. Which has been the toughest of all the ones you've drawn?
let me think. Anything that's kind of robot related is pretty difficult. So I had to do. I did a Star-Lord book.
Yeah.
That was way in the future, kind of wasteland stuff. So he's interacting with a villain that's causing all of the dead heroes to be around. So it had like Iron Man in it a little bit. So just drawing that armor, And New Superman was Asian themed. So, I had to draw kind of this big Voltron robot thing. And, so the robot kind of stuff is not really my forte per se. So that was probably the most difficult stuff to do.
Gotcha. A few more rapid fire type questions. Preferred tool to use: pencil, ink, digital. What's the preference?
Definitely, if I'm inking, everything is traditional. Okay. So that is definitely my preferred. Depending on deadline, or depending on what I'm doing, as far as if my pencils are digital or traditional, that just depends.
Okay.
Sometimes it's a mixture of both. But when I'm inking, it's always going to be traditional inks.
Gotcha.
I've done a couple things for smaller indie stuff here or there that were digital inks, and I'm just not as comfortable with it. For some reason there's some disconnect there. I think I like to drag. Everything I still do is on board. So I have original pages, and it's just because there's a texture to that paper, and you get a drag off. I use this, I'm very particular about the paper I use just because of the feel. And so, it's a traditional medium. Traditional medium is always my preferred.
Awesome. Coffee or energy drink while working?
Both. This is coffee. This is my afternoon coffee.
All right. What do you got there? You got something strong? What is that?
It's just espresso over ice.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
We have an espresso machine. Yeah. So we have the double espresso pods. I've got 2 of those in there with ice.
Oh wow! Yeah, you're fired up right now. I love that, man.
That's my go-to. But so probably coffee most. And there's only really one energy drink I like, and it's by a bodybuilder named Chris Bumstead, and he's produced his new energy drink called Bum, and they've got a root beer flavor that's really, really good. Okay. It tastes like a root beer, but I think it's 5 calories. Yeah, and so.
Gotcha. Okay.
But way better.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I lean more towards the 5-hour energy right now, but I think I want to get back to coffee. Most used playlist, or do you have background noise when you're working?
Usually Netflix or some type of streaming movies.
Gotcha. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. One artist you would love to work with or co-create with?
Oh man, I don't know. Work with or co-create with? That's a tough one. I don't know. I've gotten to meet my heroes.
Awesome.
I've made friends with my heroes. So I don't really know. I've gotten to work with some really cool writers. The first Marvel book was with Rob Liefeld, who created Deadpool, and
wow,
it was really big in the 90s. And I was looking at, back in the 90s as a kid, I was reading his books and Jim Lee's books and aspiring to be those guys. So I know everybody kind of has their different opinions of Rob, but man, he was always really good to me. And I got a chance to work with Rob a couple times, and he helped me get my first Marvel work. And so he was one of my heroes. And so I'll always be grateful for him. And he continues to be good to me too. So, I kind of got to meet all my heroes in some form or fashion or work with them. So
that's fantastic.
It's been, or make friends with them. So it's kind of been lucky that way.
Yeah. Pretty cool. You do commission work. What is commission work, and where can people reach out to you? Like, how does that whole process work for that kind of work?
Commission work is usually if somebody wants, their favorite character drawn, then they'll just reach out and, can you do whatever? Can you do a Batman? And, I have a tier level for pricing, and everywhere from just a small head sketch for, so much money to a full cover quality piece. Most of the time people just reach out on my Instagram or even through email, because
Very cool.
They just either DMs or the occasional email.
Okay. All right, cool. I'll have to get another Iron Man piece to my collection then.
Yeah.
I think this will take us into the last thing I like to talk about. If you weren't a comic artist, what would you be doing?
Well, that's what I'm doing now, which is starting my own clothing. So
Tell us about that.
That's what I've been working on for the past year. So I haven't gone completely away from comics, but I was in a position where I made a pivot. And so that's really been my focus for the past year, a little bit over a year and a half. Is doing this clothing brand, which is a faith-based clothing brand. Called Found One Apparel. So that's what I'm doing now. So using my design and my art in different ways, and doing it that way.
Yeah, I love that idea. And it sounds like, if I understand correctly, some of that's inspired from Luke 15, one of the Gospels in the New Testament. The one that went astray, the 99, then the one that went astray. Right. Is that correct?
Yeah, you can use Luke, Mark, or Matthew. It's in all three of the Gospels. But for me, that's where the name comes from.
Okay.
Because the brand name is literally my testimony. It's very personal. And so 3 years ago, I was the furthest away from Christ that I had ever been in my life. And I literally feel like he came chasing me down and brought me back. And so over the course of the past 3 years, and then I wanted to start, for the first time in my life, wanted to start wearing faith-based clothing. And I'm a fashion hog, I guess. I'm very particular about my clothes and what I wear, and I couldn't find anything that I liked that fit my style, and I couldn't find anything that, not that I can always afford it, but when I can afford it, I like to shop at places like Nordstrom or, stuff like that. And the kind of higher end streetwear kind of stuff. And I like the quality. I like the styling. I like all of that. And I just couldn't find I couldn't find much Christian streetwear or Christian clothing that spoke to me, or didn't seem like kind of just cut and paste, because I did like the design aspects of these higher end retail guys. And then I couldn't find the quality or the style or the fit that I wanted out of it. So it was really like, how do I do it myself? And so kind of filling a gap. And then the more I got into it and started thinking about it, I kind of realized there's more people like me. And when I say like me, that want to do this, but also people like me that 3 years ago, if they would have seen a t-shirt that said Jesus loves you on it, they would have rolled their eyes and walked away. And so my thought process is, how can we design in a way that still has a faith-based message that would not be the quote unquote eye roll to that person? Right. So there's plenty of room for, and there's plenty of room, and there's definitely a reason for the Jesus loves you t-shirt. And there's definitely room for Psalms 23 t-shirt, and that's fine. And that will reach some people, but some people it won't. The ones that I'm trying to reach through our brand are the people that, if we release a shirt, which we're looking at a design, and I'll just tell you, it's a design based off of where the dry bones come back alive. And it's heavily traditional tattoo inspired in design, but it doesn't have any scripture on it. It does say dry bones come alive, but it doesn't have a scripture, verse, reference, anything. Because I want someone to see that shirt and ask me what it means.
Mm.
Because if I can get them to ask me what it means now, because they think it's cool, or they think it looks like something I got it wherever, now I can engage them in conversation instead of them potentially just glossing over or walking off.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Yeah. And I saw one of your YouTube videos or shorts. I believe you were talking about leaving the gym. You had one of your shirts on, I think, at the gym, and somebody said something, and that just sparked a conversation. And that's why you're doing that. It's kind of making people curious, with that. So
yeah, it is. It's a big thing. I think it's, a lot of I'm not putting down other brands, because there are a lot of great brands out there, and there's a lot of brands with a great heart. But I think that as much of a place as the Jesus Loves You shirt has its place, there's two people I know specifically that they wouldn't even give that shirt a second look.
Sure.
But both of these people I've been to at least engage in conversation with them about a design that I've done that's been a little bit more subtle, right? And maybe all I get to do at that point is plant that seed, and I don't get to see that come to fruition. But one of them's an atheist, and I don't know how the other one sits as far as their belief in any higher power. But I do know that neither one are believers. But the fact that those designs made them interested enough to have the conversation about it. And so we're trying to walk that line of super cool streetwear and super cool faith, and right there in the middle, to do the best we can to reach whoever we can, and also giving, and again, the brand leans a little bit higher end, and we try to do it in a way that is accessible in a price for people. But I think the other thing that Christian clothing in a sense has done is it's set itself up to be cheesy and corny, or cheap. It's $35 or $25 for a t-shirt. And so now people think it's just cheap, when why can't, if someone's going to go to the mall and spend over $100 on a t-shirt because it's made by this designer, why can't you give them that same quality and make them feel the same? Maybe not for the $100 price tag, but give them the same quality and feel that they would get from spending that $100 on that t-shirt because it's by some designer, where they can also share their faith and feel the same way, So we're big on quality. We're big on the way that everything fits, all of that, along with the message. It's like, I heard this the other day, and this really stood out to me. They were talking about, it was, I can never remember how to pronounce his name, Jonathan, what's his name? That's on The Chosen, that plays Jesus on The Chosen.
Oh yeah, I know who you're talking about.
And he's talking about the production quality of this being such a high production quality.
Right.
And it's expensive to produce. But if you want to reach the people in a way that they'll accept it, he said, if you have this piece of gold and you put it in a wad of trash and threw it on the ground, nobody's going to pick it up because it's wadded up in trash. They're not going to know the gold's inside. So that's kind of how I look at it with the clothing. The message is the gold, but why would you wrap it up in something cheap? You know what I mean? Because they're not going to accept it. So let's give it a quality, put it in a quality product. Again, we're not charging $100 and something for a t-shirt, but
right.
It's still not $25 a t-shirt. We're putting actual care into the fabrics and the fits and measurements and even everything from the neck label to make sure it's soft enough and fits right and doesn't scratch your neck and all of that stuff, right? Taking as much care as a fashion brand that any fashion brand out there is taking and doing it in the faith-based world.
Well, I appreciate you sharing your faith and helping people to think more about Jesus and God for sure. And
brother, I spent the majority of my life not sharing my faith, and I spent the majority of my life almost running from it until God let my world crumble. And when if everything I did.
This episode is sponsored by Friskies, who would like to tell your cats hi. Now, if that didn't get your cat's attention, there's one thing that always does the trick. Just pour some Friskies crunchy food in the bowl and you'll hear those paws come running. Works every time. With so many Friskies choices, you can always bring your cats running from their secret napping spots. There's always more to explore. See for yourself at friskies.com or visit your local store.
Mint is still $15 a month for premium wireless. And if you haven't made the switch yet, here are 15 reasons why you should. 1, it's $15 a month. 2, seriously, it's $15 a month. 3, no big contracts. 4, I use it. 5, my mom uses it. Are you playing me off? That's what's happening, right? Okay, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, $15 per month equivalent required. New customer offer first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Still didn't keep him from me. And from him, seeing him redeem everything in my life. Doesn't mean it's always easy. That I can't not hide it.
Yeah.
I can't hide it.
Yeah.
He's done too much.
Amen.
He's redeemed my family, my marriage. He has picked me up out of a pit. So I have to share.
Yeah.
And I have to do it in any way that I know how. Either through our brand or any opportunity I get to say something even small to someone about something, or just in action.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I really appreciate you, Brent. I love to get together with you just to talk more about faith. And, I'm a big Marvel fan, and I want to say thank you. And I met you at the comic convention a few weeks ago. I think I was just kind of standing there and you were drawing. I didn't say anything. Then you looked up at me like, who's this guy? What do you want, man? I said, hey, I'm trying to work on courage, but I want to ask you this question. And you're like, yeah, go ahead. Just send me a message, dude. And so I appreciate you, giving me this opportunity. But I think, for me, being a Christian, it's that's the biggest thing. We want to talk about Jesus. My sermon yesterday was the gospel of Jesus of Nazareth, and I preached from Acts chapter 2 at the time of this recording.
Yeah.
And those opportunities, it's there's opportunities all around us, and he's done so much. So whenever we get that opportunity, and I use the podcast like this too. I've had a variety of people on. I don't know everyone's background, but I probably have 60, 70 sermons on this podcast, and it's going out to 78 countries. And I've had a variety of people with backgrounds. There are some who are even, religious minded that may not agree exactly with everything that I preach as well, and those could be other discussions too, with certain things, but it's just another avenue to get the message out there. And you never know who's going to be listening to this, and who it may impact. So I'm thankful that it's given me an opportunity to meet you. And I'm serious. I love to get together with you. You can come over to my place and have some lunch, and we don't have to talk comics or anything. We'll just talk about really what really matters the most. And love hearing that you're a family man. and a man of faith. So I greatly appreciate that, Brent.
Yeah, man. Well, I appreciate you. Thanks for having me on.
This has been fun. Those who are listening, check out Brent. And what website? Where can they go? I know you're on Instagram. Give us your handle, or if there's another website.
My last name, Peeples Art. So it's all Peeples Art. So for Instagram and Facebook, I think it's just Brent Peeples. And then the clothing brand is Found One Apparel, all spelled out. So FOUNDONE Apparel.
Yeah.
Same for the website, same for the Instagram, same for the Facebook, all of it. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Cool. Brent, thanks so much. And thank you for everyone who is listening and tuning in. We'll see you next time.